All right, today we're doing something a little different. We're going to be financial detectives. We've got a case file right here, and it's packed with numbers and reports, all centered around a single mystery. Our mission? To follow the money and piece together the story of a company called Aarvee Denims, using nothing but their own public filings. So, let's get into it. And this is the central question of our whole investigation. I mean, think about that. It's a huge swing, and it practically screams for an explanation. This isn't just a bad quarter we're talking about. It's a massive change in the company's financial health. So how on earth did it happen? Well, the clues are all locked away in their financial statements, and you and I, we're going to find them. So here's our game plan, our roadmap for cracking this case. First, we'll decode the basics. Then, we'll uncover a huge clue hiding in the company's structure. After that, we'll chart the decline, hunt down where all the money was going, and finally, deliver the bottom line verdict based on all the evidence. Okay, every good investigation has to start with the basics, right? Our subject is Aarvee Denims Exports Limited, and our main piece of evidence, our case file, if you will, is their own financial data, the stuff they report to the public. Now, before we get too deep in the weeds, let's make sure we're all on the same page here. A financial statement, it's really just the company's official story. It tells you what they earned, what they spent, and what they own. It's the most direct way to get the real facts, with no spin. Okay, so let's get the key facts straight from the file. We're looking at Aarvee Denims Exports Limited. All the numbers are in Indian rupees. But this last point, this is the crucial one. This is our first real clue. It's a multi-segment business. They're in textiles, and they're also in power generation. You need to remember that detail, because that's where this whole story really gets interesting. Right, that multi-segment thing we just mentioned, that's our first big lead. Let's pull on that thread and see how this one little fact starts to unravel the entire mystery. You've really got to wrap your head around this, because it's so important. We're not just analyzing one company here. We're basically looking at two. There's this huge textiles operation, and then there's a much smaller power generation business. And as we're about to see, they tell two completely different stories. Just look at the difference in scale here. It's not even close. In one quarter in 2019, the textile side brought in over 1.6 billion rupees, and power generation, just 77 million. So based on revenue alone, you'd think the textiles business is the star of the show, the big engine driving the whole company, wouldn't you? But that is the multi-billion rupee question, isn't it? Because bringing in a ton of money is one thing, but what you actually get to keep after all the bills are paid, well, that's what really matters. And boom, here's the major twist in our story. That tiny little power generation segment, the one with the small revenue, it actually turned a profit of 59 million rupees. Meanwhile, the giant textile segment, the one that looked like the hero bringing in all the cash, it lost a staggering 92 million rupees in the exact same period. The engine was actually the one leaking oil all over the place. So we have our prime suspect, the textiles segment. Now let's build out a timeline to see just how fast things went south for the company as a whole. This timeline just lays it all out. Look at early 2018. The company manages to make a small profit, about 5.7 million rupees. Okay. Now, fast forward just over a year to mid-2019, and that profit has turned into a 16 million rupee loss. And by the end of that financial year, the total loss balloons to almost 420 million rupees. That is a breathtaking reversal. And to put an even finer point on it, in just 6 months, the company lost over 416 million rupees. Let that sink in. This wasn't a slow leak. This was a gaping hole in the hull of the ship. So, we know the company was hemorrhaging money, and we know it was coming from the textile side. The next logical question for any detective is, where did all that money actually go? We need to follow the trail of expenses. You know, sometimes the simplest charts tell the most powerful stories. And here's the fundamental problem right here. In that really tough quarter, the company brought in 1.68 billion rupees, but it spent 1.85 billion. You don't need a finance degree to see that spending way more than you make is a one-way ticket to a loss. So where was that 1.85 billion going? This chart gives us the answer. And look at that huge slice of the pie. Over half of every single rupee going out the door, 52%, was spent on the cost of materials. We're talking about the raw stuff like cotton and dyes that they need to make their products. And That connects all the dots. The cost of materials is almost entirely for making denim, so the single biggest expense is directly tied to the single biggest and most unprofitable part of the entire company: textiles. Okay, we've examined the evidence, we've followed the clues, we've identified the suspect. Now it's time to bring it all together and deliver the final verdict based on the story these numbers have told us. This slide just puts everything in stark black and white. Just compare the profitable quarter from 2018 to the loss-making one in 2019. Total income, it dropped by almost 500 million rupees. But look at the expenses. They only fell by about 310 million. That widening gap between the money coming in and the money going out, that's exactly how a small profit becomes a gigantic loss. So, the verdict from the data is crystal clear. The company's main business, textiles, saw its sales drop. At the same time, its costs, especially for raw materials, stayed stubbornly high. The profitable little power business just wasn't big enough to bail out its big brother. And that toxic combination is what turned the whole company upside down. Case closed. And at the end of the day, that's what this financial detective story really shows us. It's not a tale of failure across the board. It's the story of a core legacy business that was struggling under the immense pressure of falling income and high costs, and it was dragging the rest of the company down with it. And that really leaves us with the ultimate business challenge, doesn't it? When your biggest strength suddenly becomes your biggest weakness, how in the world do you engineer a turnaround? It's a tough question, and one we're thinking about. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.